Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So let me make sure I am up, make sure my sound hasn't dropped between the two recordings. Apparently, I am not the only one that's greatly bothered by Gina Haspel being put in the position of director of the CIA. And I've been seeing right many people bitch and moan about her being put into that slot. So good for them. Good for them. First, thank everybody for showing up whenever you guys get here. Hard Bastard is going to be here Sunday. I'm sorry, it's going to be here Monday at 7 p.m. It was supposed to be here Wednesday, but it was my fault. I was ill that day, and I ended up having to push Grant Cameron back, in which case he knocked Hard Bastard back. So he will be here on Monday. He has my utmost apologies for it. Also, I want to thank everyone for showing up. So anyone who likes, shares, gives through Patreon, gives through Super Cash, you guys are immensely appreciated. Thank you very much. You guys help make the show. I don't want to harp on this point about the CIA thing, but I do want to hit it one more time just to make a point. If you're not a Nazi, don't talk like a Nazi. So, during World War II, you had the German government literally in a quest somewhat to take over the world. In an odd way. For all intents and purposes, take over all of Europe anyway. That German government lost. Now, in the ruins of that loss, 50 million people had died. Upwards of 50 million people had been killed. Beyond all the mayhem, beyond all the terror, beyond the Holocaust, beyond all that stuff, when the sun set down on all of the carnage that had taken place, the world had cobbled itself together in a certain amount of unity. And in that certain amount of unity, they put the remaining German forces and the German government on trial. That trial was called the Nuremberg trial. Now, in that trial, they put one person after the next that has something to do either with the government or with the occupation. I mean, the government itself, meaning Germany. And they put them on trial. And they were able to give their testimony about what happened and everything else. Here's one guy who was on trial. I want you to hear this very specific part, because this is going to make my point.
Schon im Hauptkriegsverbrecherprozess in Nuremberg.
I don't know if you guys can hear this, and I don't know if you can see this, so I'm just going to read what he's saying. What took place behind the scenes planning mass murder and treatment of prisoners was strict, but any methodical physical abuse or maltreatment was out of the question. During the summer of 1941, I was ordered to Berlin to receive orders personally from the SS Reichsführer Himmler. He said something like this: the Führer has ordered the final solution of the Jewish problem. We, the SS, are entrusted with executing this order. He has chosen Auschwitz for logistical reasons. It is the best situated with respect to rail technology. And the sprawling site provides ample space. Now, there are many of those clips. You can go through. They've been saved. They're on YouTube. I've looked at them before. They're fucking fascinating to watch. For all intents and purposes, it boils down to I was ordered to do it. I did what my government told me to do. My government told me to get these people and mangle and destroy these people. What was I supposed to do? I was just following orders. I was just following orders. How are you going to prosecute me for doing what I was told to do? That was the defense. One after the next, after the next, after the next. That was the defense they used. The world powers, with the authority given by multiple countries, came down with the verdict of, we don't care. We don't care if your government told you to do that. There are things that matter more than your government telling you to do something, particularly when those things are ghastly and extraordinarily gross. Your immoral behavior, even if it's government inclined or even if it's pushed by the government itself, is not going to be tolerated. Yes, you're following orders, but there is a higher order of things that condemn your behavior as being immoral and intolerable. Many were hanged. Many were killed. Some got off. The point that I'm making here is that defense sets somewhat of a precedent that there are bounds that your government can't necessarily compel you to do, at the very least can't necessarily compel you to do without consequence from other forces. We find ourselves in the United States in 2018 in a situation where many of the people, Fmr Spooks, talking on behalf of Gina Haspel, is using similar language as the government told her to do it. If you're not a Nazi, why are you sounding like a Nazi? That's what I'm asking. The government telling you to do it is not an excuse. At least by the precedent set at Nuremberg, what the United States was a part of. Let's keep going. So, this. John Kiriakou is a former CIA agent. He's going to talk about Gina Haspel. For a stint, he worked with her. Let's hear what he has to say.
Talk about the latest shakeup in the Trump administration. Let's bring into this conversation former CIA officer John Kiriakou, who personally knew CIA director nominee Gina Haspel when he worked at the CIA. But their careers have taken very different paths over the past decade. Haspel, who was directly involved in torture at a secret CIA prison in Thailand, has been promoted to now head the agency. Kiriakou, who blew the whistle on the torture program, ended up being jailed for almost 2 years. John Kiriakou, welcome back to Democracy Now! Can you respond to President Trump's decision to fire Rex Tillerson and replace Tillerson with Pompeo as Secretary of State? Pompeo, head of the CIA, would be then replaced by the Deputy Director of the CIA, Gina Haspel.
Well, so many of us believed a year ago that Rex Tillerson was going to be the adult in the room at the White House. That turned out to be the case in a way, but he was so disrespected by this president and those around him that he was probably doomed from the beginning. On Mike Pompeo, I've said from the beginning, you can disagree with him politically and ideologically, but he doesn't have the kind of baggage that Gina Haspel has. I wouldn't have chosen Mike Pompeo to be the Secretary of State, but I guess in the greater scheme of things, we could have done worse. Gina Haspel, however, is a problem, a big problem. I've been talking about Gina Haspel for more than a year. She was a dreadful choice to be the deputy director. She's a worse choice to be the director. I think it's wonderful that there's a possibility of a woman heading the CIA, but there are 50 different women who are qualified to lead the CIA. It shouldn't be Gina Haspel.
So talk about why you and others called her Bloody Gina.
We did call her Bloody Gina. Gina was always very quick and very willing to use force. You know, there was a group of officers in the CIA's Counterterrorism Center when I was serving there, who I hate to even make the accusation out loud, but I'm going to say it, who enjoyed using force. Yeah, everybody knew that torture didn't work. That's not even the issue. Lots of different things work. Was it moral and was it ethical and was it legal? I think the answers to those questions are very clearly no. But Gina and people like Gina did it, I think, because they enjoyed doing it. They tortured just for the sake of torture, not for the sake of gathering information.
And can you talk more specifically about Gina Haspel heading up the secret CIA black site in Thailand? And for those who aren't familiar with even what a black site is, and the fact that she not only headed it up, but was directly involved with the torture.
First, let me preface any comments that I make by saying that the CIA's Publications Review Board is specifically prohibiting me from talking about Gina Haspel's resume, especially her overseas duty. With that said, the media has reported extensively on what Gina Haspel has done over the course of her career, so I'll leave it at that. With that said, a black site is a site that's more or less off the books, meaning it doesn't officially exist. It exists, but nobody is supposed to know that it exists. And in many cases, that includes the congressional oversight committees. So in the immediate aftermath of 9/11, the CIA set up such black sites all around the world, with the idea being that if we captured someone from al-Qaeda or kidnapped someone from al-Qaeda, we could send him to one of these black sites, interrogate him without having to worry about the law, about ethics or morality or the FBI breathing down their backs. They could do whatever they wanted. And that's how this torture program spiraled out of control. There were people who were murdered in the course of their interrogations.
That's the woman they're putting in charge of the CIA. That's the woman they're putting in charge of the CIA. In order to make that work, of course, because they're putting up, she's going to have to get confirmed. You now have Fmr Spooks saying, yeah, she's good for that role. And I understand she has baggage, but the government made her do it. She didn't do it for no reason. The government made her do it, so it makes it okay. Her torturing and breaking human beings in a black site beyond the books and destroying the evidence that she did that was okay because the government said she could do it. So this is The Intercept. Some of Haspel's champions have used the exact language of the popular version of the Nuremberg defense, while others have paraphrased it. One who paraphrased it is Michael Hayden, former director of both the CIA and the National Security Agency. In a Wednesday op-ed, Hayden endorsed Haspel as head of the CIA, writing, Haspel did nothing more and nothing less than what the nation and the agency asked her to do, and she did it well. She broke and destroyed other human beings very well. He's using a euphemism in the sense of she's doing it well and everything else. Abu Zubaydah was grabbed, tortured. He was put into little boxes. They poured water over his face until he passed out, in which case they woke him up and they poured more water on his face until he passed out. Gurgling bubbles, being hit, slapped, thrown against the wall. Like I said, put in a coffin-like conditions. They were torturing him. He was being tortured. And beyond being tortured, the indignity of all this is this part. It's a lot to read, but by the time the source on whom the CIA had based its assessment that Zubaydah was the number 3 or 4 in the al-Qaeda organization had recanted his testimony, according to the Senate Intelligence Committee report on torture released in 2014, the agency would ultimately conclude that Zubaydah was not even a member of al-Qaeda. They got the wrong guy. They got the wrong guy. This is ProPublica, by the way. As CIA video cameras rolled, security guards shackled Abu Zubaydah to the gurney and interrogators poured water over his mouth and nose until he began to suffocate. They slammed him against the wall, confined him for hours in a coffin-like box, and deprived him of sleep. The 31-year-old Zubaydah begged for mercy, saying he knew nothing about the terror group's future plans. The CIA official in charge, known in the agency lingo as Chief of the Base, or COB, mocked his complaints, accusing Zubaydah of faking symptoms of psychological breakdown. The torture continued. Let's keep going. John Brennan, who ran the CIA under President Barack Obama, made similar remarks on Tuesday when he asked about Haspel. The Bush administration had decided that its torture program was legal, said Brennan, and Haspel tried to carry out the duties of CIA as best to her ability, even when the CIA asked her to do some very difficult things. You mean torture? The CIA asked her to torture, and she enthusiastically tortured. Saying that the Bush administration decided that torture was against the law doesn't really apply. The Bush administration, in and of itself, does not make the law. Understand what I'm saying? Any random president can assume anything. They can say anything. That does not, in fact, make it a law. That doesn't make it a law. It takes more than that than making it a law. Torture is against our laws. Torture is against international law. She, nor anybody else affiliated with this, was prosecuted. The Obama administration came in and said, we're looking forward, we're not looking back. And part of looking forward is people like Gina Haspel, a torturer who ran a black site, who tortured the wrong person and destroyed the evidence, now may likely be head of the CIA because you have weak, feckless Democrats who don't have the balls to stand up and say no to this particular thing. Let's keep going. There's more. There's more yes men, more yes people who are going to pull the Nuremberg defense. Texas Republican Will Hurd used the precise language of the Nuremberg defense during a Tuesday appearance on CNN when Wolf Blitzer asked him to respond to a statement by Senator John McCain. John McCain said, the Senate must do its job scrutinizing the record and involvement of Gina Haspel in its disgraceful program. Disgraceful is an understatement. Embarrassing, immoral, repugnant. There are several words for the program that you can use for the torture. Yes. Hurd, a member of the House Intelligence Committee and former CIA operative as well, another spook, told Blitzer that this wasn't Gina's idea. She was following orders. She implemented orders and was doing her job. Nazis. Nazis. They're having a Nazi defense. We tortured and broke and slapped and punched and put these people in boxes and threw cold water on them to freeze them and played loud music on them very long hours of the night to keep them up for multiple days and waterboarded them and rectal fed them. We did all these things because the government said to do it. So it makes it okay. Apparently that makes it okay. Apparently Nazis were just misunderstood. There's another defense that is explicitly illegitimate under international law. The UN Convention Against Torture, which was transmitted to the Senate by Ronald Reagan in 1988, states, no exceptional circumstances whatsoever, whether at a state of war or a threat of war, internal political instability or other public emergency may be invoked as a justification of torture. Notably, Blitzer did not have any follow-up questions for Hurd about his jarring comment. Samantha Winograd, who served on President Obama's National Security Council and who is now an analyst for CNN, likewise used the Nuremberg defense language in an appearance on the network Haspel said was implementing the lawful orders of the president. You could argue she should have quit because the program was so abhorrent, but she was following orders. That's not a defense. That is not a defense. Unless you're a Nazi. Unless you're saying that the Nazis were misunderstood, this is not a defense. Last but not least, there's Rich Lowry, editor of the National Review, who issued a ringing defense of Haspel in Politico, claiming she was merely acting in response to what she was told were lawful orders. Are you telling me that Haspel didn't know that torture was against the law and against international laws? Is that what you're telling me? And beyond that, you're telling me that she needed a law to tell her that, hey, maybe me slapping and punching and throwing this person into the wall and breaking this human being, maybe that's not the best thing to do. Maybe that's not the best thing to do. You're literally hearing the Nuremberg defense updated in order to get somebody who was a torturer, who got off on torture, who got off on destroying evidence. Obama didn't want to prosecute, and now she's going to be director of the CIA. But they're literally, in order to cover her, using the Nuremberg defense, the exact same defense used by Nazis, in order to make it okay that she gets this political post. If you want to know hypocrisy, if you want to know the definition of the word hypocrisy, look at this. You have one spook after the next saying that what this woman did was perfectly okay. That's beyond embarrassing. That is beyond embarrassing. I'm not going to keep this one long, because this one has already gone a little long. There is no situation where this woman should be head of the CIA. That's my only point. I'm not going to make 20 more videos of this. This just aggravates me that this is even up for debate. That woman was a torturer. That woman should be in prison, not the head of the CIA. I ended on that. All right, guys. If you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support through Super Cash or Patreon. Thanks, everyone.